Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is Jared's Books. I am Jared, and I am stoked to give you an awesome book review. Um, was kind of in a low spot reading wise after the Between Two Fires experience by Christopher Buehlman. Look, I don't want to knock anybody's artistic work and stuff like that, but a miss is a miss. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. That means me, which is part of this channel. The book was not good. Um, when you come off of a bad read, I think I think everybody that enjoys books in the book reading community, everybody's always looking for that scratch a book that scratches that itch, a book that delivers. And when you have a bad read, it really puts you. I think it almost has like a physical toll. And then when you follow it up with something that's just so good, it's it's awesome. And what I followed up that poor read with was a great read, and that was Stephen King's Revival. This book is not long, which is, you know, kind of different for Stephen King. It's only 403 pages. The overall book feel of the paperback is good, fits well in the hand. The font was a little light on it. I bring the texture and font and stuff like that up because I think it makes an impact into the overall reading experience. For instance, whoever's pumping out the paperback format of Stoner by John Williams that you can get on Amazon should be fined and arrested because that book is so incredible, moving, is so great of a classic novel for it to be in that condensed, terrible font, terrible formatting. It's a travesty. I think it makes a massive difference. But I don't want to go on a tangent about book textures because of my OCD. So let's jump back in. Stephen King's Revival. You are going to be in Maine, of course, where a lot of Stephen King's books take place. And you're going to be following, at first, a young Jamie Morton, who is a sibling of four others. So it's a family of five in Harlow, Maine. Excuse me. A new young Reverend preacher comes to town named Charlie Jacobs, and he instantly takes a liking into young Jamie. They're kind of connected. They sync up real well, and the young preacher becomes becomes pretty popular in the town. Unfortunately, he has a terrible tragedy befall him that causes him to lose his faith. And he loses his faith in a pretty dramatic fashion. And I won't get into too much of that because I don't want to give away too many spoilers into the book. So Jamie grows up. The preacher, Charlie Jacobs, goes on his way. And later in life, they run into each other. Poor Jamie Morton has turned into a heroin addict, a pretty severe heroin addict that is a semi-successful rhythm guitarist. And he runs into the preacher or Reverend Charlie Jacobs, who's now working at a carnival. The Reverend has always had a obsession with electricity, and he tells Charlie that through some experimentation with a special electricity that he can cure him of his heroin addiction, and he does. And then kind of fixes him up. They go on their separate ways, and then later on in life, the Reverend and Jamie end up syncing back up again for a final experiment with his special electricity, and the ending is absolutely insane, top-notch, quintessential Stephen King. So some things that I really liked about this book is this is a slow burn suspense builder. You're gonna get the great characters, the great background of the characters, the great environment building. But one thing that's different with this one is one of Stephen King's biggest criticisms is his side tangents. He'll go on for chapters and side stories and too much background that takes away from the story. You don't get that in this one. It's only 400 pages. He keeps it real tight to the chest. He doesn't do too much of that, and you still get those good characters, that good atmosphere, and story development. There's some cool aspects in this one. There's a faith aspect to it, but I think the book's title is not really appropriate for what the book was, because yeah, there is an element of the religious in it, but it's not the majority of the book like you would think from the cover and the title. It actually doesn't have too much to do with that at all. There's a bigger theme with the addiction aspect to Jamie Morton. There's also a very cool rock and roll subculture thing going on throughout the book, because Jamie Morton has become a pretty successful rhythm guitarist in his life. And even after he's cured, he goes and he works in a studio and stuff like that. So there's cool elements with that. There's rock and roll references, which is pretty cool. It just adds another layer to it. The book slow burns, and then this climax. You know when it's coming. You can feel it coming. And then it takes you think you know what you're getting ready to see, and then in Stephen King fashion, he just throws you way out in a supernatural world that only he can create with images only he can do. It's fantastic. Do I think it's one of his best books? No. But I do think it's one of his good ones. I think it's a fun read. I read this in under a week, and usually takes me. I'm reading about a book a week now, but it took me under a week. Like, I really liked it. I really liked the characters. I really liked the ending. It was really good. Highly recommend it. Scale of 1 to 5, 3.8. It was really good. Highly recommend it. Definitely check it out. Worth a read. Pick it up. Revival. Stephen King, the man, knows how to write a book. So where do we go from here? This happens every time we read a Stephen King book, even after the Doohickey experience. So I know some of you that watch a channel were hypercritical of my opinion on Doohickey because I didn't like it overall. I really liked the characters, the two characters, their relationship. I loved that build up. So I loved 75% of the book. I just really didn't like the last quarter of it. I didn't like it, and everybody let me know. But when we read a Stephen King book, and those of you that enjoy it, you might know what I'm talking about. Is there is a real, very real Stephen King hangover, and it's where do you go from here, because you just read a great novel. So I have a reading list. I went through my Amazon cart, which I'm constantly throwing books and novels into, and wanted your opinion on this. Lonesome Dove, Larry McMurtry. I've heard it's fantastic. It gets rave reviews. People have it on their top tens. So I'm thinking about checking that one out. The Invincible by Stanislaw Lem. I heard about this from Ian Gubelli's channel. If you haven't, check him out, man. Really cool guy, real animated, really good content, good taste in books. This one's written in the 60s about a space adventure that lands on Mars, and apparently they find something crazy, so it could be pretty cool. Pines, the first book in the Wayward Pines trilogy by Blake Crouch. I absolutely loved Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. It was super fast, super thriller. The writing style and formatting was really cool, almost read like a script, and it was a lot of fun. I burned through that one in like 3 days. And then Butcher's Crossing by John Williams. I was so moved and blown away by the prose in Stoner by John Williams that I want to read Butcher's Crossing. And it's definitely up there on the to read list, because I like good prose in a book. So, John Williams, the stoner prose, John Steinbeck's prose. He's my favorite of author all time. And then some of the prose that you got from Truman Capote in Cold Blood. Other Truman Capote works I really didn't like that a lot. Other Voices, Other Rooms, I thought was a completeness. So yeah, let me know if you read that one and what you thought about that, because I thought it was a stinker. Um, so let me know in the comments. Lonesome Dove, The Invincible, Pines, or Butcher's Crossing. It's going to be one of those. I also thought about reading Nexus by Nora Harari. It's a nonfiction, kind of delves into human networking and stuff like that. It looks very interesting. I'm looking for something with some substance. I read about the first 75 pages of the the Lost Van Gogh, or the Last Van Gogh. I'll have the picture here, and it's good, but it's not gonna scratch the itch. It's not gonna fill the Stephen King void. It seems like it's very surface level reading, and it could be a fun read. I'm gonna finish reading it, but I'd rather something more substantial. So that's what I got. I did a little prep on this one just because I wanted to have a good couple books for maybe you guys to give me some recommendations on. And if you haven't checked it out, check it out. If you're a Stephen King fan, check it out. It's definitely going to give you what you want from a Stephen King novel. 3.8 Revival. As always, thanks for stopping by. Keep reading. Talk soon.